it did look like you murdered a robot.
Kind of. I mean, it kind of is like that, right? It's just the death throes.
So lead basically causes, like at the lowest levels, it causes cognitive effects, like increased aggression, stuff like that.
And like wearing a MAGA, they ate a lot of lead paint in the boomer like formative years.
So the shooter is exposed to lead oxide, and that lead styphenate ignites. So basically, when you fire around,
yeah,
that lead gets on you. Like, you know the GSR test, like they do on CSI? Part of that is detecting the actual lead. If you're a shooter, you're exposed to aerosolized lead. The lead like gets on your entire body, on your skin. It gets absorbed that way. It'll get into your eyes partially, and then like it goes in your tear ducts and you swallow it. You are affected by that lead. And at the lowest level, it increases aggression.
Well, I mean, and they all like, there was lead-based gas in the up until like the 70s, right? So like we were burning lead and shooting those fumes out into the into the air, the atmosphere.
So there's an entire lead-based crime theory where like the addition of leaded gasoline basically follows this curve of crime in urban settings.
And that, well, in the paint too, like in like Baltimore, they got the lead checks for the people in the projects and shit. Where they know sorry, your kid's mentally retarded because of the lead.
It gets so much worse. So Chicago, 70% of kids under 6 years old are exposed to lead through their water. Now, those lead pipes are primarily in neighborhoods of people of color. So I bet you that lines up with some of the redlining maps. No, it was so redlining. You know what redlining was?
Well, yeah, I know what redlining, but that's what I'm saying. Like the redlining, it's like they prohibited the buying property. Like only black people could buy property in certain places. They couldn't get mortgages.
No, they said they wouldn't give you a mortgage.
There's no business loans that are extended within the red line area, so that's why you wind up with your food deserts.
But that means those houses are basically lower value because people can't get enough capital together to buy them, which means that the infrastructure that pays for it through property taxes doesn't go to the actual infrastructure. Which means
what you do is you get people that buy the motherfuckers and then they just use them for tax write-offs. So like, well, I'm saying like the landlords, they just buy these properties, and then it's like, your Section 8, you get X amount of dollars for meeting X amount of standard. So they put minimal work into it, and they charge the maximum rent, and that drives up rent in the area all around because it sets kind of the floor for rent.
That's part of another problem. That's a whole bracket where like people use I can't remember what company it is, but they all use the same company to like set rent prices. So they just charge the maximum they possibly can.
Well, yeah, but it comes from the whole Section 8 thing of being like a base of it where the government authorizes up to a certain amount for them to charge. But then like, outside of the Section 8, they can just like raise rent depending upon the local area as much as they want. But the whole point with it is that that's just an investment for them so that they get it, they get the guaranteed rent money, and they get to charge depreciation on the property, right, to write all that off, and then they've just put minimum investment into the property, which they got for a fucking song. Yeah. But, the depreciation basically keeps them from having to put the taxes. It keeps them from having to pay taxes on it.
But I'm talking about like the historical people of color, like how they were basically they're inordinate members.
That's what I'm saying is that now you've got outside investors that just buy this property and then they farm them. They basically turn them into livestock. They just get it and they basically people like, oh, you're giving black people free houses. Like, no, dude, you're giving white landlords free money is what you're doing.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is I'll bet you could map out this entire wheel of oppression from like lead pipes to redlining to there's a nonprofit that tracks where all of this lead exists.
About that too, right? Okay, if you look at like historical black populations, like look at where the plantations were, okay, they're still living in the same places today, basically. I mean, aside from like the inner city type stuff, any outside of that, the population demographics have not really changed in the areas that they're from.
Well, yeah, if you have no money, you don't have any money to move.
They're kind of stuck like in the same place they were when they were in slavery.
So if you explain any one of these things, you're like, oh, that's unfortunate. But if you put it all together, it's like it's almost like it's this weird intentional system of oppression. But it just ends up being that way.
That's like I've been screaming. That's my central thesis on my channel. That after Bacon's Rebellion, right? They when they had the poor whites and the poor blacks, like they were together, so they overthrew the Virginia colonial governors. So that's when they said, okay, well, all you white guys are pardoned, all you black folks are fucked, right? And then they started making like the anti-miscegenation laws and the you can't defend yourself if you're black, like you're not allowed to hit a white person even if they attack you, even a freed black person. And it was like in 1691 they made this law that said any white person that marries an Indian or a black person, free or slave, is forever banished from the domain. And so, and the whole point of it was, okay, that quote with LBJ, if you can give somebody to look down upon, they'll turn out their pocket for you, right? So they just said, okay, well, you guys are with us, you're cool, like the whole Ronald Reagan thing, you convince them they're temporarily inconvenienced billionaires, right? So you're just like us. You're not going to revolt against us. F these black people. They're let's just go ahead and they're not like you. They don't get the rights you get. You get special rights because you're special.